Hi, everyone. We are here and getting ready to start. I want to give everyone a minute before we get started. But let us know if you can hear us, if you can see us. Say something, Gary.
Hello.
As we get a little bit closer to go time, and you can hear us both and you can see us both. Fabulous. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Paula. Great to see you. Well, I don't want to keep us held up for too long before we get started with this really great episode of Association Chat. This is going to be a lot of fun as usual, but I just want to let everyone know that thank you. As we are working with bringing on new sponsors and as we're experimenting always with live events like the one that's happening next week, I just want to say thanks to all of you who tune in every week, occasionally, once in a great while, and who show support to this community, because it's really, really great. And it's a powerful thing for our community to have something like this and to have all of you working on these discussions. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, welcome to this edition of Association Chat. This is your weekly online discussion for the association community where we warm ourselves by the virtual fire with topics of the day, welcoming thought leaders and trailblazers alike to join up in this online home for the community. I'm your host, KiKi L'Italien, CEO of Amplified Growth Digital Marketing and host of this weekly chat that has been around since 2009. Today's show is all about quantifying member value and the do's and don'ts of marketing. Can you quantify your association member value? It's a kind of a difficult thing to do, and it's a heady topic. It's a difficult topic, but it's one that our guest today is going to be able to tackle with us as he talks a little bit about his experience in acting as a client's CTO, CIO, and learning a little bit along the way about some gaps that they had in their organization. One project that he worked on had him quantifying their member value, and they changed their marketing because of this. Gary Palmatier, he has so much experience, has his own business, I've known him for years, great guy, great mind. And he's going to share with us today a little bit about this dizzying topic of quantifying member value, and also talking about the application of technology and process to produce results. So thanks for joining us, Gary. I can't wait to hear what you're willing to share with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's a great honor to have been invited onto the show, and yeah, I'm definitely happy to share some things that I've learned with everyone, and hopefully, spread the good word.
I love it. I love it. So you guys, you have to know that Gary is, he was an early supporter of Association Chat, even as a tweet chat. And so he's been around, he's followed the conversation, but he has done all kinds of amazing things with his career. So I figure that it would be helpful for you to understand where he's coming from and sort of his perspective if you know a little bit about his history. So Gary, I'm going to throw you into the hot seat now. And
sure,
you've moved around a bit in your career. You have gone from working for a nonprofit to being a nonprofit consultant, to the dark side, to being a general consultant, working with companies, nonprofits. What do you have to say? I mean, what's going on with this? And what are some of the things that you've learned along the way?
Well, I've learned, quite a few things. And I say this to everyone, no matter what their career path is in life, whether they're a scientist or an engineer. I still am utterly passionate about working with nonprofits and working for nonprofits and associations. And whenever I'm talking to anyone who's just getting into the professional world, I tell them to go look for employment opportunities at associations, because they are just such an amazing place to work. Mm-hmm. They have amazing cultures, and you can go there and be challenged like no other job that you've ever had. And I think anybody looking, definitely consider association work, because it's life-changing. And, for me, I had some great experiences. I worked at a union first and worked in their member department, and then jumped into the Northeastern Retail Lumber Association as their IT director. And and then, made the jump to consulting, and then made the jump to owning my own company, who, I do some for-profit and some nonprofit. I love it all, but definitely, quite the adventure. So one thing also I'll plug, I got my CAE in 2010.
Woohoo!
And that was also life-changing, because it just sets you up for the whole rest of your life. Getting that first job at a nonprofit is when you start walking in your career, and getting the CAE is, for me, when I felt like I started running. And you learn so much more than just your job. You learn about the world, and you learn the law, and you learn so many things that help you be invaluable to any company that you work for. So if you're thinking about getting your CAE, I would say go for it.
I love it. Oh my gosh. And all of you CAEs out there have to be loving this. One thing I heard from several people leading up to this, that they were really excited. They looked a little bit, we posted a little bit about your background, and the fact that you're kind of a Salesforce guru. You've done just a million different things and won awards and all kinds of stuff connected to that. And they were really excited about the fact that you were going to be talking with us today. And so can you speak a little bit to, how that plays into what you do today, just so people understand that while we're talking about quantifying member value, that you also have this experience that plays very heavily into what you do with Red Argyle, which is your
Sure. So, back when I was working in IT capacity, I, was very much on the technical side. I managed a couple databases. I was a big time IMAS administrator for a long time. If you don't know, IMAS is was and is still a very major player in the AMS space. So I really loved the technology. When I went into consulting, my employer, who was amazing and awesome, said, "Hey, we're putting together a Salesforce team. Do you want to give it a try?" And, being the geek that I am, I said, "Okay, let me look at it," and came back the next day and said, "Oh my God, this is amazing. Get me on the bus." And, as a technology person, the enablement that I've been able to achieve, both in a consulting capacity and, watching my clients, the way that they can use the Salesforce platform to accomplish their business goals. It is just astonishing, just no infrastructure, on-demand licensing, automatic upgrades, super secure app ecosystem. The list goes on and on and on about why I love it. So, when I got into it, I decided this is where my career is taking me, and becoming a Salesforce professional. And it has just been, again, another pivotal part of my personal evolution. And, it's good stuff. And it has a great community. Everyone here talks about social and community. Take a look at the Salesforce community and what they've done, because it is a model for how a company can leverage the power of the public and do amazing things. I think there's 2 million people that are active in the Salesforce community globally.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. And it's almost impossible not to have some sort of news about Salesforce, Dreamforce, and the community that's connected there filtering into your everyday. What's funny, I think, about the association community is once you're in it, it seems like even those of us who jump to the dark side or go different places, it's almost like it pulls us back. And so for you, one of the big reasons why you're on today and why we're talking to you is because you got involved. You've had these association clients, but you got more heavily involved, and you've been doing a lot more with associations and some stuff that's really important, I think, for association executives to hear about. What can you tell us a little bit about that?
So yeah, it's definitely interesting because, as it's funny because my Twitter handle is Darth Gary. So I think I've been on the dark side since the beginning, but as I went to the for-profit world, and I've, kind of gone back and forth over the years, you realize that there's so many similarities in what the business needs to do. And there's so many similarities between what an association needs to do to manage its members versus a for-profit company managing its customers, that, while governance is a lot different and the motivations are a lot different between the two, there are so many technical and business similarities that, I think I've learned a lot on the business side that I've taken back to my association customers. And everything that I learned on the association side is, I think, core part of my DNA that I've taken to my, business customers. So, I guess my biggest takeaway is they're a lot more similar than we think. There's differences, but, overall business still works a certain way, and technology works a certain way, and whatever environment it's in, it's still, the laws of physics are still the same in either environment.
Well, and I just want to mention that Lara here says, I love when Ask and Chat gets nerdy. Yeah, me too. I think it's awesome too. So Darth, Gary, and that, by the way, if you guys want to tweet out, if you want to make comments, feel free, if you're watching live, to make comments over here on the side. You can ask questions and get answers. If you go to the little tab over here, the little button underneath our screen where you can see us both side by side talking, and ask your questions there, and we'll try to get to them as we're going along. But if you want to tweet along while we're discussing, at Darth Gary, and that's Gary with 2 R's, is the way to go about it. So anyway, I want to jump into talking a little bit more about, the whole point of us getting together and talking. The big headline focus for this was quantifying your member value. And this is an area that I don't care if you're in membership, if you're the ED, everyone is trying to answer this problem. And a lot of times it gets put on the back burner because they start and they don't know exactly how to tackle it, or they sort of halfway get in there and then they, find other things to do while they are sort of chipping away at the problem. And you have a pretty good methodology for your approach, but I would like to get into, maybe how you created this methodology,
Sure.
how you came to that. So can you tell me the story of, as you first approached this problem?
So I'll go back to back when I was working for Northeast Retail Lumber Association. Let's rewind the clock to the little dream sequence.
I need that effect on here.
So if you recall, back in 2008, 2009, there was this little problem called the economic collapse, or the Great Recession, or whatever you want to call it. And they were a nonprofit whose mission is to help independent lumber dealers out, basically. So when this Great Recession happened, the housing industry just got slammed. And they had a very forward-thinking board that when this started happening, the board said, we really need to get ahead of this and figure out how to maintain our members, because it's going to be a challenge to have them make the spend on the association dues when the whole industry is basically falling out from under our feet. So they came up with the idea and said, can we tell the members how much money they're saving or earning because of working with us? So just to clarify the topic of this, it's not for me to say, how much money am I making from a member? It's for me as an association to say, how can I tell the member really what they're getting out of their membership, and even try to quantify it with a dollar value? And that was a mind-blowing, oh my God, there's no way that this can actually be a process that's manageable, because it's just too big of a problem to solve. We do too many things and all this other stuff. But I got the lucky, magic wand. Hey, Gary, go figure this out. You're the computer guy. And that's kind of how the process started way back in the day. So we, and I can definitely outline the steps in more detail later, but, went through, inventory the things that the association does that could have a dollar value, inventoried intangible items. And then I, looked at the AMS and started inventorying, okay, this saving, they save money on advertising. They save money on event registrations. They get this legislation that provides a dividend. And I tried to figure out, where is all this information? And, my majority of it was in the AMS and different, tables and all that, reports and all that kind of stuff. And then some of it was nowhere, like the legislation. There was no correlation to say, hey, we passed a law in your state.
And
So
I'm going to butt in here,
sure.
for anyone who, I know that most of the people watching live right now, you know what an AMS is, but Association Management System, just for anyone who's listening at some later date and may not be as involved in the association realm or not as involved in that area of the association realm. All right. So
Thank you
go
for
ahead.
clarifying.
That's okay.
But
I try to remember. I mean, I deal
Laura,
with SEO and SEM and people just, their minds go. So
Laura said she likes to get nerdy, so I just dove right in.
yeah.
We'll start talking about inner joins in a minute.
Yeah.
So, we went through and figured out where all this data is. And I put together just this massive like query calculation engine that pulled it all in and spun the data. And then I still couldn't automate it all. So we had to kick it all out to a Excel, do a bunch of VLOOKUPs, stack it all together, re-import it into the AMS. But at the end, they ended up with basically 2 data points on every single member record. One was how many dollars did you get out of working with our association? Kind of savings or money in your pocket. And number 2 was, what's the list of all that stuff? And then they said, well, let's now how we're going to use that. So the very first thing that they did, because they were most concerned about, there were a lot of annual dues renewal. They said, let's figure out how to put this on our dues. So actually, can you queue up Exhibit A?
Oh, Exhibit A. Let me try. Let me try to do this. I love it. All right.
It might be a little pixely, but I guess I'll try to explain.
Yeah. We will bring up Exhibit A. Whether anyone can see it or not, that's a whole other thing. But
okay, it's a little small. So this is a screenshot of their AMS, and you can't see that what I'm pointing at, but the 2 fields on the right, the top field is what's the dollar value of your previous year's interactions with the association to the member. And then the second one is what's all the details of that. You save money here, you did this, you did that. So we put all this data together and inserted it back in the AMS. So from a day-to-day story, that's great because staff can I'm talking to this person, let me see, where their company is on the continuum of usage. Exhibit B, which hopefully is legible, but might not be. Yes. And thank you for being like my DJ for Exhibit.
No, that's okay. This is it's always kind of like playing the one-man band thing when I do this. So you're keeping me on my toes. It's good. All right. So Exhibit B.
Yeah. So Exhibit B, this is an actual dues invoice from the association. So it's a crystal report. It kicks out automatically. And this is where the magic really started to happen. So we would say, on the utilization report that we added, hey, here's how much money you saved. I mean, look at this one, $25,000 that member saved. And here's why. Magazine subscriptions, kickbacks from OSHA grants, and all the stuff that the association advocated for.
I love that so much. I mean, it reminds me of when I go to a grocery store or something and it shows me like, because you were a club member, you saved this much today, and it makes me feel responsible, even though I didn't really do anything except shop there. So, but it reminds you of the value you're getting. I love this. And you know what? I mean, how hard was it though? How many hours went into making this possibility for you?
Wait, what was the question? I was reading Karen's comment and
oh yeah. Okay, no, let's talk about that's more interesting than this. So Karen, she says, does low utilization send a red flag to staff or members to focus more on telling them better ways to use their memberships?
So the answer,
Karen, never be sorry for asking questions. It's good.
Well, it is a chat, so I guess we should chat a little bit. So the answer to that is absolutely, and I have another shot. I think that's Exhibit D, but so that's but that was their next question. They said, well, what if their utilization is 0? So then Exhibit C, we put conditional logic in the report. So if the utilization is low, the copy changes in the dues invoice. So now you can see it doesn't say your membership is 0. It says, your membership provides many cost-saving benefits, blah, blah, blah. It's just a different take. So it's basically saying there's a lot of opportunity for you to save money, and, here's how to contact our team. And then here's what you are doing, which is a good start. So then the next exhibit, the last one, just so you know, I feel like I'm on Alice's Restaurant, like the 20 aerial photographs with
I know. His ad exhibit D.
So this last one is a report that they would send to their board at the end of the year. And it basically says who's paying more to be a member of the association than they're getting back. And this is just measuring the dollars. So there are so many intangible benefits, as we all know, to being in an association. But that at least gives the board an opportunity to review who's doing what, maybe push up on some members like, hey, you got to get a little bit more busy, or invite them onto the board or something, so they get the want to get drawn back into the mothership. But that is another way really quickly for them to say who's getting the most. And one thing you can see here, it's a little small, but you can see there's 184 members in that territory, but only 80 something of them were over the value of their dues based on the numbers. So that says, all right, we know who our big users are. Well, let's figure out how to better get the folks off that aren't on the that aren't putting a lot in.
Yeah. So so Karen is saying, this is my big someday dream. I'm slowly starting to build up the data to do. Scott asks, hi, Scott. He says, how many member companies did you have? Did you print this in-house or send to a partner or email?
So this was, it was a trade association company-based membership. It was they were in the realm of 2,000 to 3,000 organizations that they were working with any given time. So it was all in-house. We were able to manage all this stuff, and the AMS did most of the heavy lifting, and I can talk more about the process as we get into it further. Just hope that answers the question.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I'm really excited about the fact that we are almost to the point where and that might be a good time to do it, can invite our special sponsor, our silver sponsor for Association Chat.
Sure.
And so that's one of the greatest things, you guys, is that with this chat every week, we try to provide value. We try to provide something, a chance for the community to get together and ask really good questions about really great topics. And as many of you know, we recently started accepting sponsorships, and one great sponsor, the fabulous Quantify, stepped up and is our silver sponsor. And with us today is one of Quantify's representatives. Actually, we have a couple that are on here, but one in particular that I want to bring on. And so, Jake, I am going to try to get you on here, and we're going to see if it works. And if it works, fantastic. And if it doesn't, well, okay, then. Then I'll go ahead and read what I was going to read. But you should see an invite on the screen, and I would love to bring you on here. It shows that Jake that has accepted, and he's connecting.
All right.
I know. This is going to get really exciting if it works. Okay, fabulous. I'm so excited. Jake is here. Jake from Quantify. Welcome.
Thank you, KiKi. I appreciate you getting this working for us. And I didn't know until this morning when I was told that I was going to be on the air. So please pardon my hair or anything that looks out of ordinary in the back. But yeah, I'm Jake from Quantify, and we make association software built on Salesforce.com. I think Salesforce has already been mentioned during this call, which is great. We love it when people talk about associations leveraging Salesforce. And KiKi, just thank you for inviting us as sponsor. We get really excited about being a part of something like this, where every industry needs something that is asking these questions and needs a forum where the status quo can be challenged. And we've always thought that this was a great forum for that. So we're very excited to be a sponsor with you. And we're very excited to be able to participate in asking questions like, how do you quantify member value? So we think this is a great venue. We're very proud to be a part of it. And anybody who wants to get a hold of me can email me at jake@quantify.com. And obviously quantify.com is our website as well. So thank you very much.
I love it. Thank you so much. And everyone, yes, please show Quantify some love, because, as you can guess, it is a little bit, they're taking a chance on little old association chat, which is around for a while, but our community is strong, and we need to show some love to those who support us. So anything you can do in that sort of regard would be very welcome. And thanks so much, you guys, for participating in coming on live today. Jake, I'm so excited you were here. Okay, so with that said, we broke into our regularly scheduled program for that sponsorship announcement, but I want to get back into the story about how people can actually build up this program. So if people are wanting to go about the difficult task of creating their own member valuation program, what should they do? How do they get back? How do they do it?
So I see, just before I jump into the speech, there's some interesting comments going on the right that I'll comment back. Richard is making a great point that your system should do it for you. And I would say 1,000% agree. If you can architect your system and design it to do this, or you're in the process of architecting and upgrading or changing, this might be something you want to consider as part of your design methodology. And one way that I like to approach design is asking customers, what kind of data do you need to get out? Because if you can say, I need this report at the end, then you can sort of tailor the growth and build of the system to go towards that apex goal of a specific type of report on the outside. So agree, and the technology is there to do it. But in the context of my friends all at the NRLA, they have a older AMS, and they didn't want to re-architect a large portion of it, and they had a lot of legacy, just data in there that they wanted to use as it was. So I think a lot of people find themselves in that boat. Like, you have a certain set of tools, and that for the foreseeable future or the next year or two, that this is these are what you have to work with. So I'll kind of outline some process to at least get you started on the path for that. And I think that you'll realize that, yes, technology is a very big part of it, but it's not the whole thing. And it's really what you can wrap around it from a culture perspective to get you there. And I think the first thing is definitely trying to get some buy-in from your leadership. If you have a tight relationship with your board, it might make a great agenda item. But just getting buy-in from the leadership can definitely help, because then it can start permeating through the culture from the board of directors down. So that's the political side or whatever you want to call it. But when the rubber hits the road and you say, all right, I need to start putting together this data. Again, going back to the outcomes in the reports, just like Richard mentioned, I would say in the context of NRLA, they were like, we want to put it on our dues and have, different levels of dues invoices. We want to have a report that we can run. We want it visible in our AMS. So they established goals of what they want to get out of the data long before we started building it. Because if you build all this data, but you don't really know what you're going to do with it, then you're not providing value to your members. Really having a goal and then jumping into the build work is the first thing. So much good chat. I could barely keep up.
I know. Every week it's like, it's some good stuff over here. We can pull some over if you like. One thing was Eric said, legacy systems. I found so much of a struggle to make them interact with solutions which require new big data focused cloud computing. And then there is a question about, is Salesforce.com a good tool to use to quantify big data focused, big data measurements? There we go.
So I would say, hey Sig, I would say in your question about, is Salesforce.com a good platform? I mean, yes, Salesforce is a great platform, and they've been working very diligently. They just added an add-on called Salesforce Wave. That's a big data analytics tool. I'll say it's great. It's great at it, but again, it all comes down to architecting the solution and where you're at. I'm a Salesforce guy, so of course I want to solve every problem with Salesforce.
Well, can I just step in here though, and actually, I'm always wanting to be aware of the fact that there may be people who are listening who they're like, okay, dude, I want to get a better AMS or whatever. But right now I'm dealing with Excel spreadsheets. I mean, can you talk to my level? Can you help me? Because sometimes you have to be in that position where you're MacGyvering a solution and just, do you have help for, is there hope? Is there hope for the person that is dealing in Excel?
Yes, there is hope for you. It's not all just a technical solution. It's work and figuring it out. So here's my 6 steps. I'll go through them quick because I'm sure that we'll have more questions. Well, I said, get your board on board. You want to, it's going to take some time and energy. You want to have the blessing. If you go to your board and say, I'm going to make our members love us that spend a lot of money or do a lot of stuff here, then they'll probably say yes. I'm on a board and I love it when people ask questions like that. And I say yes all the time. So the first thing is identifying what that is. Like if you go to an association's webpage and they're like, here's the 50,000 things that we do for you. What's funny is a lot of times they're kind of coming in from all disparate departments and areas that all landed to copy on a webpage, but there's not necessarily a data path for all of that to be accountable. So I say start with your webpage even and look at like all the things that you say that you do. And then go to each department and say, what is every value proposition that you make to a member? And I inventory all of that. That's the first item.
Okay, question.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna bring this in. Paula asks, and this completely ties into this. How did you assign monetary value to the various benefits that are intangibles, such as lobbying and the member directory, volunteering, your newsletter, etc.? Because I can tell you, when I used to work in the membership department, if somebody would have come to me and said, I mean, sometimes those things, trying to assign a dollar amount to that, they might be very important to members, but how do you assign a dollar amount to it?
So we did 2 things. Number one, we tried. So like they actually had a magazine that had a list price on it. So the magazine was easy. The magazine had a $5.95 an issue or something, and they did actually sell it at that. So they used that as an example. Newsletter, they didn't establish monetary value, but they did get the text of it. Same thing with legislation. So I might have passed a law that makes you happier, but doesn't necessarily have a dollar value. So we still took, here's all the laws that we lobbied to get passed in your state, and added all that to the flavor text section. And then, some of the laws actually did have some dollar value. Like one of them was a legislation that created a series of grants. So we did figure out the people who used the grants and added that back into their value calculation. So, it is kind of you have like all the straightforward ones, save money on this and that. And then you have the creative ones, and you have to, use a little bit of artistry to make it right. I mean, I'll definitely put my ethics hat on and say, be careful and don't overstate what you're doing. I mean, you should have a rubric to measure how you're going to do that and be consistent so that you're not, creating bogus information basically, and just being cautious, having levels of approval in the organization and making sure that everything is above board. And you can't be like, we saved you $1 billion, and the member's going to be like, whatever. So step 1, figure all this stuff out. I can't keep up, you guys. You're so chatty. This is awesome.
I know.
Step 2, identify the data paths for all that. If you have an association management system, I bet you a large portion of it is in there, but maybe all of it's not in there. So at that point, you have to figure out what is your gap analysis of how do you take all this data and put it together. If it's not in the AMS, do you have to get it to the AMS, or do you do what NRLA did, a big ETL? So they wrote an exporter, pulled everything out of the AMS, chunked through it on a couple scripts, and then re-imported it into the fields. I mean, it's actually a very straightforward data operation, but it just had to be that way because some stuff just wasn't in the AMS. It would have cost a lot of money to build it in. So they just said, what's the most effective way to do it? And that's what, if you're only on Excel, if you have the most rudimentary AMS in the world, like this can work for anyone, because you're really just saying, where's my data and where do I need to get it to go? And then developing processes for that. So then finally actually build it out and do the calculations. And incorporate it into your AMS or spreadsheets or whatever. And then engage with all your marketing campaigns that are downstream from there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the sixth step, and I'm trying to go as fast as I can. This hour is just flying by.
You know, though, I mean, we're doing pretty well, and I want to make sure that we have plenty of questions and time for that. But you're doing great. So let's talk. Where are we now? We're at number 6 now.
Yeah. So the last one is maintenance, because here's the thing: you're going to do it. So first of all, the first time you do it, write good documentation.
Mm-hmm.
I always say, be kind to your future self and document what you did, because you're never going to remember it in a year. And, you know, at the NRLA, when I wrote the documentation the first year, it was like 2009, they're still using the same exact process and documentation today. I mean, because they still have the same AMS and all that. So it hasn't really changed a lot. So that documentation that I wrote 8-9 years ago is still, you know, actively in use there, and they run it every year. So, you know, be kind to your future self. And then maintenance. So every year go back to step 1, and it's a lot easier. What changed? And just go through the list of changes and make sure they're incorporated in your process. If you got new member programs or took some off, or, you know, did something amazing that should just have a blanket statement added, you know, just figuring out how to incorporate those updates. And then you've got your numbers, and then you can go nuts.
Now, when we had spoken earlier, you had talked about how a result of doing some of the work like this was that, you know, as time had gone by, you had come back and found out that the association had made some significant changes and had a greater benefit to them because of the work that was done here. Could you speak to that a little bit, just so people can see the light at the end of the tunnel?
Mm-hmm. So when they went through it, I mean, a couple things happened. They had, and I don't have the exact statistics, they claimed to have lowered their, they had a better membership renewal rate when they started doing this, especially in light of the downturn. They expected to have a lot more member attrition when the downturn happened, but their attrition number actually dropped on an adjusted basis, and that meaning some members just went out of business. So that's a tough one to account for in your member processes. So they did some calculations on the ones that stayed in business, how many of them renewed, and the renewal rate was actually higher. And I think it was almost a reverse, like there was this crisis going on, and the association doubling down on saying, here's how we're helping you, actually had an inverse effect on membership retention, because people realized how bad they needed the association to stay afloat in this very crazy economic environment that they were in. So, you know, the ones that made it were much more likely to stay on every year.
I mean, it makes you wonder what would have happened if they hadn't jumped on that communication where they're able to present the value that they're providing and really brought that home to their members.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the things that we talked about with this session was, with this episode, was that, you know, we were going to talk about how to quantify member value, but we were also going to talk about the do's and don'ts of marketing. So basically, like, what the impact is once you've done this, how does it impact your marketing? And I know that you talked about how, you know, including the actual value that is like in dollars and cents to the member, including that kind of information is helpful. Are there other ways that knowing this, having this information can help organizations to better communicate with their members?
Yeah. So, you know, one other don't that I'll bring up and then go into some do's is a question that came up earlier was, well, what if their utilization is really low and you're just telling them how little they're using you? Then that's bad. So I would say the first golden rule of member value is, I just made that up, I don't know, is have like logic in any merges that you're doing with this stuff, so that you've got a fallback. Like if they're under a certain threshold, or, you know, you should have certain bands to say, if they're under this threshold, push value propositions to them versus tell them you did nothing. But going into the to-do side, I think there was a few cultural, yes, Richard, segmentation is right where I was going to go.
Richard's the best, by the way. I mean, I've met him in person and he just is brilliant. So thank you, Richard, for being on right now.
Richard, what am I thinking about right now?
I didn't say, he's brilliant. Maybe not psychic, but he's brilliant.
So using that data to segment a couple different ways. One was on the dues, one was just in their board and kind of personal board relationships and that kind of stuff. NRLA didn't do a lot of this, but there's opportunity would be in targeting for marketing, event stuff or, any type of outgoing communications. And you really could use this as a pretty interesting qualifier to define segments in your organization. And, I don't know where the content is, but I'll plug Wes Troclo again, because he wrote some really good content on similar concept of figuring out who your A, B, and C members are and segmenting accordingly to maximize your marketing spend. And this is a little bit of a different take, because this is, again, the members' usage of your services and value you're providing to them. But it does give you more dimensions in which to, figure out how to engage with your members.
Richard asks, do you recommend A/B testing on messaging to them to work out what works?
I have an interesting relationship with A/B testing. I can kind of say it's like there's an argument in business that you have to hustle and work hard, right? But there's no counter argument to that. There's no counter argument that says you shouldn't work hard. It's like an argument with no counter argument. And A/B testing is the same. I think A/B testing is always a good thing if it's applied in a organized, consistent way. If you can't apply A/B testing in an organized, consistent way, your time may be better spent elsewhere. But I always say A/B testing is a good,
right.
A good thing to do. And yes, I agree too. There's no substitute for hard work. However, working hard without focus isn't working.
Well, and I think when it comes to testing, I think that a lot of people just think, okay, well, that means I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. And it's really, they're just kind of throwing stuff out there. Whereas what I think that you're saying is, and a lot of times it comes back to this for me, is like any kind of test you do, you almost have to go back to remember when we were back in grade school and learning all about the scientific method and, how you're really testing things out. And a lot of times, we just don't set these experiments up the right way to be a proper test. Mm-hmm. And so I think that what I'm hearing you say is like, if you're going to do it, then, put a little thought and be strategic about what you're doing and not just, let's try this and let's try that, and kind of going intuitively out there to see, what works, because that may not give you the best kind of information to go on. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that this has been absolutely fascinating so far, but I wanted to get to a point that you had made in the past about how everyone needs to be their personal CTO. And so what are you talking about when you say that? I mean, what do you think that, when you're talking about being your own personal CTO, why do people need to be, and what do you mean?
Well, that conversation could actually probably spin off another episode of Association Chat, more focused on how to not get your life ruined.
Corrupting terrible overlord.
Yes.
That's it. That's the secret.
I did a session a while back on personal accountability, because my wife dropped her phone in the water. And it had a lot of pictures on it, and they all got lost. And then I was able to take a hot air, dryer and dry it off just enough for it to turn on one time to extract all the pictures. And, I was like, wow, I'm like a CTO for myself, and I have 2-factor authentication on all my accounts and encrypt my hard drives and do all this stuff. But then in the corporate world, we expect someone's going to take care of that for us in a lot of cases. If you have an IT department or whatever.
I mean,
Well,
so
I
if
think
you're
my
going to be your own chief technology officer, you need to know you need to know the rice trick for your iPhone. Like drying it out in rice.
well, I think in the corporate world, people think IT will fix it for me or give me the solution.
Mhm.
But when I say be your own personal CTO, I think I mean, well, I know I mean, because I made it up. You have to be the master of your own domain. Like if you're in the members department, you might not be part of IT, but if you're engaging with your data and the systems that you have, and not just saying, I need, but here's a solution that I came up with for my problem. Yes, I need some help, but I'm taking the first steps and moving that ahead. You're going to be a lot more valuable to the association, and your IT department will appreciate that, and your leadership will appreciate that because it shows initiative.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I think that it's really important. I oftentimes think that that I need to become more of a MacGyver myself, and in all ways. Like so I think it's good, not that I need to learn everything that's out there to solve my own problems, but just enough so that I know at least the right language to use when I'm looking for help with those problems.
Mm-hmm.
Eric says, here's the thing. The reason you need to be your own CTO is because tech is business now. Evidence example A is Salesforce.com. And Richard says, bring me solutions, not problems, as an old boss used to say. So I love that. We are counting down the clock. We're getting close to the end of our time, and there is still a couple of things that we need to do before we conclude for today. But before we jump over to a little game, a word association game I like to do, what's up with the firewood? You tweet an awful lot about firewood. Could you explain a little bit? And you guys, if that's not an enticing invitation to follow Gary online, then I don't know what is. But could you explain to me this fascination with, I mean, what's going on with that?
I guess I spend 40 or 50 hours a week at this desk looking at this monitor and talking on the phone and not moving a muscle. I do have a standing desk, which is great.
I can tell you're moving around, which is great. You know, I mean, I can tell you're engaged. But is this leading to the fire? I mean, this is
the firewood is the antithesis of that. It's like, go out, pick up my axe, split some wood, grunt a little bit, speak in one-word sentences. And I'm also providing economic benefit because I'm, saving a ton of money on heat, and I don't have to pay a gym membership. So
there you go. There you go. It's minimalist. It's a little CrossFit, it's like, I love it. I love it. So, okay. So there's a game that I like to play, and all of you who are watching out there right now can play along. It's a word association game. And I mean, we are in the association world, so word association seems to be an appropriate game for all of us to play together. And so this is the way we play. I'm going to call out a few words, and you need to respond with the first thing that comes to your mind. So, and all of you who are watching right now, type in your responses. It'll be very interesting to see what happens over here to the side. Okay, are you ready to play?
Okay, I'm nervous.
All right. Futurist.
Elon Musk.
Okay, very good.
Tesla.
A Tesla.
He is a psychic.
He is psychic. He may be. He may actually be. All right. Automation.
I thought of Apple. I don't know why, because they're not even a good example, but that was the first word that came to mind.
Thought leader.
You.
Oh, you guys rock. I love that so much. Okay. And weird.
What's that guy? The guy that goes, He was on Police Academy, and I don't know why I just thought of him. Bobcat Goldthwait. That's who I was thinking of.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I haven't thought of him in ages.
He is really weird.
He is really weird. He is really weird. Well, thanks everyone for playing that. That was very entertaining. I love that. I hope that you feel a little bit better after doing that. It is a fantastic time for us to say our farewell. This is all the time we have for Association Chat today. And I want to thank you very much, Gary, for sharing with all of us and giving us some great insights along the way, especially about the firewood. I might have to look into that workout a little bit later. Here's what's happening in upcoming weeks with Association Chat. Next week, we have a very interesting chat because if you're in the area, meaning in the DC metro region, then you have the opportunity to come to the Columbia, Maryland Idea Swap, where I'll be presenting on 11 social media quick wins for your events. Following that, I will be doing a live association chat for the people who are there in the room to see how all of it comes together. And the association chat, if you're just tuning in for the online chat portion, is focused on the cool 15. And this is the 15 coolest things I've learned about digital marketing in the past year. So it's going to be an awful lot of fun either way. And I think that this will be kind of an exciting event for you to participate in. At the very least, you should tune in online and see what's going on with the chat. The week after that, on the 7th, we're going to be talking with Sarah Hill. Sarah Hill is no stranger to Association Chat, but she also was the instigator of a viral Twitter. It was like a tweet storm Twitter campaign that this is all about how hashtag #CuteAnimalTweetOff took off and changed zoos around the country and around the world. It actually went, after I scheduled her for this, it actually jumped and went worldwide, and showing up in People magazine and all kinds of stuff. And she's having an awful lot of fun with that. So she's going to be on talking about that. And then the week after that, we're going to be talking about membership retention and engagement. And so that's always a hot topic. It's something that we always want to come back to. I hope that you've all gained some new insight that will help you either today or later on. Whenever it is that you found something that's of value. If you're loving Association Chat, please consider sharing this chat with your colleagues and give us some love on social media. Please, 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 please give us some love on social media. Give some love to Fontiva for being our sponsor. And as always, if you want to continue the discussion, you can join the Association Chat Facebook group for regular updates on upcoming topics and special guests. I hope to see many of you for next week's live and in-person chat at the Columbia, Maryland Idea Swap, at ASAE's Great Ideas, or at CalSAE's Elevate Conference in April. Let me know if you're going to be in the area. Let's get together. Make sure to say hi. Until next time, everyone, keep asking questions and learn every day. As Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you, Gary. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Something that's always bothered me my entire life has been when I walk in and see decorative candles that are unlit, furniture that is encased in plastic, things that should be used that are not being used. This applies to information too. I am a speaker because I have something important to share with people, and that's the information that I work in every day. When I went into learning about other components of digital marketing, that's when everything lit up. I suddenly realized how I could help people. The thing that's really exciting is that the more that I speak to different types of organizations, the more I see that a lot of us are all struggling with the same things. And whether it's as a consultant, or whether it's as a keynote speaker, or whether it's as a session breakout speaker, or I'm delivering a workshop or training or facilitating a panel, I can say, okay, well, here's what people are looking for. Here's how they're finding you now. Here's how they could be finding you. And here's how you can take your message and meet them where they are. So when somebody leaves the room, I want them to say, I got something out of that, and more than that, that's something that's going to positively impact my life. That's what I'm all about.